Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone is enjoying their day. Depending on where you're watching in the world, the morning, evening, afternoon. I hope this content will be fulfilling. Hopefully, give you some something to think about. I know it's been a long, long time since I've been on here, on Rabbinic Community Trust, and I'm kind of was like at a point where I was gonna just kind of just let things flow, and maybe rebrand the page. I think I talked about this a while back. Um, a lot of transition for me, relocating and relocating jobs, relocating areas, and getting settled in. So I just wanted to talk about a little something with this old ICE shooting in Minneapolis a few days ago. And what made me prompt to talk about it on here is because it's the perfect topic, and a few points that I want to just bring up, and I'm sure everyone has at least heard about what happened to Renee Hood. And what stuck out to me about it was it reminded me a little bit about George Floyd. And um, although different circumstances, it's just a reminder that there is a bigger agenda. And of course, the details. I'm sure you can look it up. There's been a lot of talk about it. When it comes to the footage that came out, I think yesterday. Um, I've heard from the officer's perspective, and there's a lot of footage, a lot of analyzation of law enforcement and media, and many, depending on what you watch, you're going to get your take from that. And of course, there is so much involved in this process of reporting news and sources of news that we can, get lost in translation of what really is going on and behind the scenes. And we can say that it's a distraction. We can say that it is left wing, right wing, political agenda of this whole thing. But at the end of the day, whether we take it to that extreme, where it's liberal versus conservative, Republican versus Democrat, left wing versus right wing, however you want to look at this, right? Understanding that the whole agenda of ICE and what they're here to do, or has done so far, and the backlash of their roles, their stand up from the Trump administration to grab illegal immigrants and send them on back to their countries, deportations, and holding them holding them, I don't want to say hostage, right? To get them, vetted and sent back to their country. Um, that's just the start of this whole thing. But the real point I want to bring up is maybe just two things, right? We gotta understand this whole scenario. At the end of the day, whether we agree, disagree, and I don't necessarily care for loss of life, right? I'm not rejoicing at the death of Renee Hood. I'm not rejoicing at taking sides. That there's a lot of sides being taken, of course, of the ICE officer shouldn't have shot her or whatever, or vice versa. But one thing we understand is, and just me, saying, obviously operating in a law enforcement capacity at one point, and obviously being in the military, right? Understanding that the deadly force continuum, right? One of the things, of course, we can say AI, we can come up with all these different, uh, you know, conspiracy, theories, aspect. We can come up with our own take on this. That the way the video was put out, that from the camera, body cam, and that the fact that Renee Hood hit the officer. We can go into different takes. At the end of the day, the continuum, deadly force continuum, is there for reasons to protect those who are serving, right? And if you even think about it from a civilian capacity, and excuse the background noise, I'm outside, sitting on the outside, so you're gonna hear cars and stuff like that. When you think about the deadly force continuum, and even if you're a civilian, right? What I'm saying, the goal of the deadly force continuum is to it's a scale, and I know some people are familiar with this. So if you are familiar with this, definitely you can take this and add upon it. But a basic understanding of the deadly force continuum is to understand that there are levels, and there's from non-lethal weapons. You'd have to use those. You have to use verbal, verbal force, and telling the person a lawful command, stop, don't come near, let go the weapon, stuff like that, right? And if you think about it from a civilian capacity, right, and your life is on the line, even not from a law enforcement standpoint, you're looking at it from a civilian standpoint, and you're about to get ran over by a vehicle, does that deadly force continuum apply, right? Do I allow this car to run me over and injure, seriously bodily harm, cause seriously bodily harm, or even death, or do I stop the threat, right? So when I think about law enforcement, of course, again, working in a capacity of that, my goal is to come home at the end of the day. And so if you've been given lawful commands to step out the vehicle or to move out the way, if you're in a place where they're trying to do their investigation, or they're trying to deal with a criminal activity, or deal with the task, and again, we can look at it from a perspective that were they really there to do it. We can get into this whole thing. We can go down this rabbit hole to say that were they really there to do service in regards to their job, their task, or were they there to just set up, some type of blockade, or to cause violation of constitutional rights. We can say all that, but just for the sake of argument, where if they were conducting investigation, or they were doing tasks that were assigned to them, and a civilian gets in the way of that and been asked to step away, to leave, or to get out the vehicle, and you decide to use that vehicle as a deadly weapon, right? And you could kill, cause seriously bodily harm or injury to an officer. Again, even think about it from a civilian capacity, right? You're just a regular person. Would it be justified to shoot at that vehicle? Now, again, the goal of the deadly force continuum is to stop the threat, right? We can take it as killing. When they taught the police academy to shoot to center mass, or to stop the threat, that's what it is. It's to stop the threat from causing seriously bodily harm or death or injury to themselves or to others that are around them, right? So when you take a vehicle and you use it as a way to cause injury, per the evidence that is out there, does it warrant deadly force? And that's something that we got to understand in a law enforcement capacity. And so, was it justified from a police standpoint to kill Renee Good, right? If it's causing bodily harm, yes. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Did the officer have to shoot her to kill her? No. But again, when you're using a vehicle as a deadly weapon, there's really no room for error. And that's the key of understanding this whole thing. The whole thing about, the officer's head should be on a stick. And again, when you think about law enforcement and the roles they play, the job that they do, it's easy to point the finger. And, we know the difference between George Floyd and what they did in that particular scenario. He was supposed to have been just detained. He was supposed to have been booked. He was supposed to have been, cared for medically, and they took it to another level, right? There was no threat, right? There was no, bodily harm done to officers, and they took it to the next level. And then we understand that scenario. But does this constitute another situation where this is a George Floyd scenario? Does this constitute where the officers were at threat and they needed to use deadly force? Because there is a difference between deadly force and excessive force, right? Excessive force is when they do too much, when it's not needed. Deadly force is when, okay, this is my life. This is the life of myself or another officer or another person. I got to do something, and it may constitute you getting killed, right? So I'm not trying to complicate this. I'm trying to keep it very bare bones and basic, because at the end of the day, people have to use logic, use some type of understanding, and it's easier with experience. A lot of times people get emotional because someone they lost, someone they love, someone that's a mother, someone that is a friend, a citizen, upright citizen. And I'm not saying that she was not. Of course, again, when we look into the background of people, you may find things that are not favorable to what an upright citizen is. She was part of ICE Watch, where they were to watch out for ICE. It's this whole agenda against the Immigration Customs Enforcement officers, and there's been a lot of media propaganda and a lot of things have been sent out about them since the Trump administration was stood up. But she was on part of this, and she was determined to engage in watching ICE and what they're doing. Even with that being said, if they're given federal law enforcement powers or jurisdiction, and they carry out a lawful order, then that's the job of the officer, and the civilian should comply with that order, unless it causes them danger or bodily harm, and it causes them to put your life in danger. And in that case, then you have to make a decision. And it's been instances where law enforcement may have caused someone to put out an order that may endanger that person, and they end up, having to make a different decision, right? But in this case, was this justified shooting? Was this something that could have been prevented and could have been spared? And so we have to take accountability where it needs to be taken, right? You can't take a vehicle and hit an officer with it, especially with the culture of officers and the administration giving those powers to officers to carry out such tasks. And now, when you have backing from the government, the federal government, to protect officers at all costs, and you have this blue badge culture, that's what I call it anyway, where if you hurt an officer, you're pretty much dead, right? You hurt military, you're pretty much dead, right? So in this aspect, we think about National Guard shooting, same thing. That you're doing things to federal government or state government or even local government. It doesn't matter if it's the local sheriff. It doesn't matter if it's the county, the sheriffs, the federal government, state trooper, metropolitan police department. Doesn't matter who it is. That's the mindset. So when we think about protesting, you're not liking agendas. You don't like the rhetoric. You don't like the politics behind what people do, what governments and administrations do, right? And people go out and they protest. You got to be mindful that you still have to abide by the rules and the laws that's been given to you. Another point that I want to bring up is understanding too that when we're dealing with people in our lives, right? This is interesting because it's not a race thing now, right? George Floyd was black, white officer. Now you got ICE officers. I think it's Jonathan Haas. I think it's his name. That shot and killed Renee Good. I keep calling her Hood. Sorry, Renee Good. But they were white, right? So it's not a race thing. Who you were with. If you look to one of the videos, it says "Drive, baby, drive." And it was a clip that caught it, and she said it, and she drove and hit the officer. Being mindful of influence, right? If you're going out and you're protesting, and that's your right. That's your right to protest, right? As long as you're obeying the lawful orders that have been given to you. As long as you're not violating rules and regulations and policies of that city or that area you're protesting in. As long as you're doing things the right way, you can protest by constitutional right. But when you have people with you and they in this whole context of influence where I'm gonna do stuff, and now it costs you your life, and now you have leaving kids behind, and now you're leaving family behind, and now people are angry and protesting and blaming the ICE officer. But we fail to understand that we gotta have a level head. If we're protesting, and a lot of times we protest, we don't like something. We hate something that's being done. We don't care for something that's being done. We want to protest. We want to have a voice, and that's your right. The law enforcement can't impede on that right, as long as it doesn't impede with investigation or criminal activity. You can't cause a what's the word I'm looking for? You can't impede investigation. You can't be, blocking off when they're trying to do their jobs. You got to be able to, protest in a manner that is lawful, right? And so they ask you to move. No matter how much you don't like them, you hate them, can't stand them. ICE, CBP, DHS, Trump administration, whatever it is. And I'm not justifying that what they're doing is right. I'm just saying to make sure that people go home at the end of the day. And so when we're doing things and we're making a scene, and yes, we can record, we can get officers' names, highly encourage that, but making sure that you got to be responsible. Because, end of the day now, Renee Good is gone. Her kids are without a mother, and family, friends, community members, all that she's influenced is gone because of a choice. And knowing that the government is going to support these actions in reference to shooting and killing a person, and to them it's terrorism, then we got to understand too how smart we need to be in doing the things that we have a constitutional right to do. And so 2 points again: when you're carrying out agendas, whether you're protesting, whether it's a political, whether it's whatever it is, be smart. Exercise your rights, but be smart and understand that don't allow your emotions and feelings to get you in a position where you're violating the law. It's not about power. It is about power, but I'm not trying to stress power, because we know we already seen the pattern where law enforcement can take power to the next level. But in the sense of understanding the dynamics today, we have to be mindful of ourselves and do things the correct way. Talk to Congress, write your congressman, your congresswoman. Yes, protest in numbers, but do things legally. Use news media, put pressure the correct way. If you can't stand something, if you don't like something, how something is going, put pressure on your leaders. This is why voting is so important. And again, we can get into this rhetoric about voting, but voting is important because you're putting pressure on these leaders to do something about what's going on in our nation, in our cities. But do things the correct way to where it doesn't affect you not going home at the end of the day. Don't be that woman or that man to go out and cause issues to the point where you're getting yourself killed. Don't try to be bold enough to be a martyr and go and run over a police officer, because we know, especially in the sense of deadly force, they're going to use it. And is it worth losing your life over it because you can't stand ICE, or you can't stand the Trump administration, or you can't stand what they're doing? Is it worth your life being taken? Is it worth if you have family, whether you got kids, whether you got your parents, siblings, friends, wife, husband, whatever the case may be, is it worth leaving them behind because you can't stand an agenda? It's not saying that you shouldn't speak out. It's not saying that you can't protest. It's not saying that you can't do something. If you really truly feel that they're violating constitutional right, if you really truly feel that they're doing people wrong, not all about means. You stand up, speak out, say what you need to say. But all I'm saying is, in the midst of that, it doesn't matter if you're dead. None of that matters if you're dead. And a lot of times the media is going to spin it. A lot of times things are going to be justified, and they're going to use all means to justify the crime to them, right? Or to justify that this was right. And again, from looking at the video, whether it's AI, whether someone tweaked it, someone did something to it, either way, it looks justified, because deadly force continuum applies when you try to run someone over. Try to look at it from a civilian standpoint. If you was just a regular person and there was a dispute among someone else and they get in their car and they try to run you over and you had a handgun, would you shoot at the vehicle? Would you try to get out the way? It could be a combination of both. But if you know your life is in danger or someone that you love, his life is in danger, okay, and it was someone trying to run you over because there's a dispute or they just don't like you or whatever the case may be, and you had a handgun, would you have pointed that gun and used it and shot that person and killed them? That's the question you should ask yourself. Would it be, oh, that person was loved, that's a mother, that's a father, that's a son, that's a daughter, he shouldn't have done it, she shouldn't have done it? Does it matter apply when it's law enforcement? Right is right, wrong is wrong. They have a right to go home at the end of the day too. Whether they follow out a task that's been given by a government or a governmental jurisdictional authority to carry out that you don't like. You don't like what that ICE is doing. So therefore, we do all these extra tricks. We go through all these changes. And it's to the point where you have so much hate and disdain for the organization that you're willing to run them over. It's not about, again, I'm not sitting here agreeing and disagreeing because you can say, pick a side. Is ICE doing right or they're doing wrong? It's about safety. It's about understanding and being smart. It's about being smart. Because truthfully, to be honest, I rather had not heard that she got killed. Regardless of what you think about what she is, what she does, whatever the case may be, I'd rather her have been alive than dead. Just like I'd rather George Floyd would have been alive than dead. One took it excessively, and one used deadly force. That's my thing. It's not about right, wrong, and different. We can get here and agree all day about what they're doing. But the way that we have to move smartly as civilians, as citizens of the United States, in the context of our cities, in the context of our communities, is to make sure that we're policing each other. Making sure that we're being smart when we're out here protesting and speaking out, when we're out here putting pressure on these killings. And do you feel that Renee Good's life was unjustly taken? Like you're doing. You're protesting, you're speaking out. It's been protests nationwide, major cities. Pressure putting on this ICE organization, DHS, the leadership, Congress's involvement, House of Representatives, Senate, local governments, the mayor, putting pressure, cooperating with government authorities or not cooperating with government authorities to investigate her death. Was it justified shooting? Was it not? All of these things, you as civilian citizens can continue to keep protesting about. But all I'm trying to make a point is it worth your life? Is the people around you that feel this type of way, that, I can't stand ICE, I can't stand DHS, I can't stand this, whatever. Are you going to be smart about how you move? It's no different than a mass shooting. It's no different from anything else. It's no different from, it's just no different. If it's a church shooting, it's just been on the rise for the last 18 months, and you're a civilian and you see somebody trying to come up and kill everyone in the church, you're going to take action, right? I hope you would. If it's a school and you're a law enforcement school resource officer, they got to protect those themselves and others. Deadly force is authorized. When there's a threat to kill or injure or cause serious bodily harm, deadly force continuum. It starts from the low levels, non-lethal, all the way to actual using deadly force. It applies both ways. And what I saw was an example of deadly force being used. Because there was a vehicle being used to run over an officer that was trying to get her to come out the vehicle. And the thing is, again, to my second point, was those who are around you shouldn't be saying, drive, baby, drive. They should be saying, Hey, let's stop. Let's do what they ask us to do, and let's, comply. It may lead to an arrest. It may lead to detainment. It may lead to whatever else. But when the officers ask you from the beginning to move your vehicle, move your vehicle. Again, it's not about power. It's about safety. It's about, I'm going home into the day to my family. I can protest any other day. I can do that anytime. But I'm alive, I'm well, and I get to go home and spend time with my family. I get to go home to be productive. I get to go home and I'm not, landing, I'm not losing a life because I'm out here doing stuff I shouldn't be doing. When the officer actually complies, you should just comply. Not be irrational, illogical. I'm going to do what I want to do. Talking trash, saying stuff, egging it on. If you truly loved you're the people that you're around, you will say the right things. You'll say, no, we're not going to do that. I know you feel some type of way. I know you're angry. I know you're upset. I know you don't like this organization. I know you don't like what they're doing. I don't like their agenda. I don't like this. I don't like that. I hate this. I hate that. But I care enough about you and you going home at the end of the day versus my feelings. I care that you're alive. We're alive. That we're willing to say, you know what, it ain't worth it. It's not worth my life. It's not. I don't want these officers feeling that they can use deadly force. And another point, and I'm almost done. And we can go on this whole argument that officers are trigger happy. I think some of the officers maybe want to do right. They may be just trying to get their task done. Maybe they're just trying to move and do what they've been asked to do and operate in their authority. I'm sure there's some that itching to they tired of the hate. They're tired of the disdain. They're tired of getting shunned out. Even reports of officers came getting hotel rooms, hotel organizations and groups and companies are banning them from going in certain organizations, and this hotel saying, no, I don't want them there. So they're probably tired of the hate and disdain themselves. So there may be some irritation and frustration with the population and the communities they're in and they're serving, trying to carry out their task. And there's some that saying, I'm just trying to do my job. I'm trying to go home. I got a family too. I'm trying to go home at the end of the day. So you got to look at it from both perspectives, right? But I will say, my main goal for this video is to look at the facts that are there, whether construed or not construed, and analyzing what I see. And I see a vehicle trying to run over an ICE officer. And knowing the background that I operated in at one point in time, right, I was able to determine that deadly force is authorized. And that's just what it is. It's not about, that particular person. It's probably not personal. They probably didn't want to do it. Some he may did want to do it. I don't think he wanted to do it, but when it comes to life of them himself or herself or those around them, their job is to stop the threat. Because if they didn't, say she drove off and they hit the officer and say he got seriously hurt or killed and she got away, at least temporarily or permanent, who's to say that was what that example was said? It would have been a lot more chasing and been a lot more worse consequence. You know what I'm saying? It would have been a major manhunt. And she's in a situation where she's with her kids and say they kick you don't know, right? So this stuff can go a lot deeper and a lot more than what it should. So that's my take on it. Again, I may talk about immigration things, immigration rules and regulations, and just certain opinions. I may do another video to kind of smooth back in and just get my take on it. But from this standpoint of the shooting in Minneapolis the other day, that's my take on it. It's not about personal. It's not that I gloat over her life being lost. She should have got what she deserved, or this officer should get what he deserved. It's about safety. If you're going to be out here moving in these streets and you're going to be protesting and doing things that are your constitutional right, you got to understand that my personal objective to you guys that do it is safety. And yes, comply. Comply, not because of power, not because I'm giving my rights over to the police. It's really because you're loved. You're loved by someone. Regardless if you got an agenda, regardless if you feel some type of way, you got hate or disdain or irritation or frustration with any organization, law enforcement capacity. You're loved. You have a family member, that's someone that loves you. And at the end of the day, they don't want to hear that you've been shot and killed because you chose to disobey and try to take life. You're not trained. You're civilian, and nothing's worth losing your life over in the way that she lost hers. The person that edged her on, her spouse, should have told her, stop, get out the car, we're done. That's what it should have been said, not drive, baby, drive. And then she drove, and then she ended up dying, and now she's dead, and now that person that told her to do that is living. It should have been stopped. It's not that serious. I want you home at the end of the day. You have a family to go to, and I need you to comply. Whether I get arrested, whether I get detained, whatever the case may be, I have another opportunity to live another day, to reassess what I've done. And if I want to continue to fight or be out there protesting, I can do it, but I'm alive to do it. Don't make rash decisions and it cost you your life. All right? That's all I got. See y'all in the next video.